average first-round pick in 2023 signed for more than $4 million. That is a ton of money. But the reality is, it doesn't really matter what you sign for. And frankly, it also doesn't matter that much what actually hits your bank account. What really matters for MLB draftees is what is the value of that signing bonus? Hey everyone, I'm Jacob Turner, former Major League Baseball player and current co-founder of Moment Private Wealth. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a question that I always wanted the answer to when I signed as an 18-year-old. What's the true value of this signing bonus? If I don't ever make significant money again, what will this do for me in my life? To start, I want to talk about how we're going to go through this scenario. So in 2023, the median signing bonus of the top 50 picks in the MLB draft was $3.1 million. So what does that mean? The median just simply means the middle number. So consider this pick 25, 26 in terms of the top 50 signing bonuses in terms of dollar amounts was $3.1 million. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to look at, well, how much would potentially come out from taxes? So as you can see here, an after-tax projected take-home is about $2.036 million. Now, I will preface this by saying this is going to depend on your state residency and going to depend on some of the other tax strategies that you apply. But for this scenario, we're going to use this $2.036 million number in terms of our after-tax take-home. The next thing that I want to look at is what are we doing in terms of spending? So you've worked really hard to be in this scenario. And what we say is we want to give you some sort of budget that you can live a good lifestyle, but not go crazy. So typically what that looks like is starting at, let's call it $3,000 to $4,000 a month. In this scenario, we're using $4,000 a month. On top of that, we also have a $100,000 reward purchase. So what this means is, remember, reward purchase just simply means that we are doing something one time to reward ourselves for all the hard work that we put in. So to recap where we're at in this scenario, we signed for $3.1 million. Our after-tax take-home was $2.036 million. We're spending about $4,000 a month, and we've also bought a $100,000 reward purchase. Usually a pretty cool car. So now that we have a baseline, remember, why is this important in the first place? The reality is, for a lot of high draft picks, the amount of money that they're earning in the draft will be the most money that they ever earn in professional sports. So the way that I like to describe it is we want to plan as pessimistically as possible, but then we want to cheer you on as optimistically as possible. Because we never want you to be in a position where you're looking back 5, 10 years down the road and you're saying, man, I wish I would have done things differently when I first got that check. So again, our goal here is to take this $3.1 million signing bonus and give us a really good understanding of what would real life look like if I didn't make any more money. And again, what would real life look like if I didn't make any more money, but I actually spent some money and I didn't just save it and put it into some calculator and show you what it looked like in the future. So let's take a look at that. Now that we have a good baseline of where we're at, let's take a look at what these numbers actually look like. So remember, we signed for $3.1 million. After taxes, we had $2.036 million. We spent $100,000 on a really cool car. So that leaves us with $1.936 million left. So what do we do with it? Ultimately, I think it makes sense to invest it, but how we invest it's different, because the reality is you want to make sure that you have a decent amount of money, if not a lot more money than a typical person, in cash, because your lifestyle is going to change a lot. So we're going to talk about this, but we're starting with that net worth of $1.936 million. If we check out our goals, we have a goal retirement age of 31. So what does that really mean? What I like to show is if we played baseball from the time we were, let's call it 18 to 31 or 22 to 31, whenever we got drafted, and we never made it to the big leagues, and we played in the minor leagues for roughly a decade, and we spent the money that we talked about spending, what does life potentially look like? Because really, this is the worst case scenario for a draftee, right? You sign for all this money and you don't make it to the big leagues where you're making significantly more money. So what we have in there is we have retirement age at 31. We have that reward purchase at $100,000. And then we have retirement expenses at $6,000. So what this means is we're going to start by spending $4,000 a month, but in retirement, post 31, we'd be spending $6,000 a month. What we're trying to do is just outline a hypothetical scenario that is potential real life scenario. The next thing that we have on here is income. So we have listed minor league salary at $27,000. This is the general starting point for most minor league salaries today. Could be a little higher, could be a little lower. But again, we want to outline what could this hypothetically look like. And what we're saying here is we're going to make this minor league salary for the next decade, right? We're never going to make it to the big leagues. And the reason why we're saying that is we don't believe that to be the case, but we want to plan as pessimistically as possible. We want to make sure that we're being really good stewards of that initial signing bonus that we got. The only other thing that we have in here is we have post-baseball income at $50,000. And what I like to do is I like to put a number in there that you could go out and you could earn post-baseball. So this could be coaching in the minor leagues. This could be broadcasting. This could be a career separate from baseball. And I don't like to put in some crazy amount of money. It's a realistic number that in year one, we could make $50,000. So what this means is we're spending money, but we're also making a little bit of money after our baseball career career ends. The other things that we put in here is pre-retirement living expenses. So we have there in there at $4,000 a month. So remember, when we said we signed, we said, hey, somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 a month can be a really good starting point for us. In this scenario, we used $4,000 a month. The other thing that we put in there in terms of taxes, fees, expenses was our agent fees. Typically for most Major League Baseball players, those agent fees are going to be somewhere between 3 to 5%. So what we did in this scenario is we put 5%. So what that looks like is we had a monthly expense in that first year of about $12,900. The next thing that I want to look at here is how do we actually look to invest this money? So a couple things to think about. One, as a professional athlete, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to change in your life from the time you're 18 to 21 and you're getting drafted to the time you could potentially be 30 years old and married with a couple kids. So what we always like to say is let's start a little bit more conservatively and we can always turn up the dial. I call it dipping your toe in the water. Because remember, this is the first time that you've ever invested significant money. So in this scenario, what we said was we had about 70% of the money that's positioned towards growth. This is going to be things like stocks, things that we think are going to grow over time. And then we had about 30% of the money positioned towards our war chest. These are things like cash and bonds. Or said another way, these are our safe assets. These are the money, this is the money that we know is going to be there for us. So in this scenario, our projected rate of return is about 6.7%. Something that's relatively conservative, but we also feel like it's very achievable for us to be able to return that. So let's look at what do the cash flows of this actually look like. This is the most important thing to look like. How much money do we have going in versus how much money do we have going out? So in this scenario, let's take a look at the top. So we're in 2024. We're 20 years old. We just signed for $3.1 million. We got $2.036 million after taxes. We spent $100,000 on a car. Now what are we left with? Okay, if we take a look at this scenario, you can see total inflows of $27,000. This is our minor league salary that we're going to have coming in. Our total outflows are $276,000. Now the reason for that is a couple things. One, we have our $4,000 of living expenses. We also have our agent fees that are coming out. So remember, our agent fees are going to be typically 3 to 5% of our total contract that's coming out in year one. So as we look at this, we can also see our tax payments are in here. And what I want to do is show you what it looks like over the course of time. So remember, in our scenario, we're never making it to the big leagues. We're saying this is the biggest check we're ever going to get in professional sports. And in addition to that, we're going to look at potentially retiring at the time that we're 31 years old. Okay, so this means, again, we never made any more big checks. We retire at 31 years old. And then what does it look like? Again, we want to think about money coming in versus money going out. So remember, we talked about we'd be making about $50,000 in today's dollars in retirement. So inflation adjusted, that means that that $50,000 would be about $69,000 of income in 2035. Okay, a realistic number that you could earn post baseball. In addition to that, we have outflows. So our outflows are about $141,000. That's our living expenses. Remember, we budgeted in about $6,000 a month in living expenses in today's dollars. We said when we get done playing, we'd like to be able to spend about that much money. Now, again, all these things are going to change for anybody in their plan, but I think it's really important to know on the upfront, what is the true value of this signing bonus? And as you can see in this scenario, we're still in a pretty good position. So what I want to show you guys next is how does it look after all of this? How does the money grow and what does it look like? How do we bring all these pieces together? Let's recap a little bit where we're at. So we've already talked a little bit about the median value, how we got to our $3.1 million number. We've talked through the fact that we're starting out spending $4,000 a month. We talked through our $100,000 reward purchase, our agent fees, our taxes, all those things. Well, what does this money actually look like in our lives? Remember, we're planning as pessimistically as possible. We're not saying this is going to happen, but we want to make sure that we're being really smart with the money that we have on the upfront. So what we said is we have about a 6.7 projected rate of return. Remember, that was 70% in growth and about 30% in safety. That would give us about $1.936 million invested at age 18. If we retired at 30 and we spent $50,000 a year, what does that look like if we were going to spend $6,000 a month after retirement? Okay, you can see down here what our account value looks like. We start at $1.936 million. At age 30, we have about $2.307 million. Now remember, we've been spending money the entire time. We haven't been earning enough in salary to cover all of our living expenses. At age 40, we have about $3.4 million. At age 50, we have $5.2 million. At age 60, we have $8.1 million. And at age 70, we have $11.7 million. So why do I show you guys all these numbers? I show you these numbers because the reality is if you can do it right on the upfront, if you can plan right on the upfront as a top MLB draft pick, you can truly set your family up for generations to come. And now this is a hypothetical scenario. There's a bunch of different things in place here, but I think it's really important to understand that you can have tens of millions of dollars by doing this right on the upfront. I can't stress enough. The opportunity that you have in front of you as a top MLB draft pick is enormous. It's almost hard to even even fathom, to be honest with you. And I've seen it time and time again, guys. People get done playing, they get close to being done playing, and they've achieved simply a 4 out of 10 outcome, when in reality, they could have achieved a 10 out of 10 outcome just by planning in advance and really understanding what is the value of this true signing bonus. Because more often than not, what I see for players is it's not that they don't want to do the right things, they just don't know how valuable each dollar that they have is when they initially signed. So this doesn't mean that you should sign and not spend any money. This doesn't mean that you should sign and spend every dollar. It means that there's a nice middle ground there where you can set yourself up no matter what happens. Lord willing, you make it to the big leagues and you sign a huge contract and you're able to spend more money than what we talked about here. But if that doesn't happen, we can't go back in time. So I urge you, do it right on the upfront. If you're into this sort of thing and you want to get smarter with your money, I post videos every single week, either about athletes or entrepreneurs or basic personal finance concepts. So like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos.